and the private operators like QCell, AfriCell, Comium, Unique Solutions, and NetPage. The two ISPs as members of the GSC, with government owning almost 19% of the shares of the GSC, Gamtel owning 20%, Gamcell owning 10%, QCell, of course, owns 16% of the shares, AfriCell owns 15% of the shares, Unique Solutions owns 5% of the shares, it's an ISP, and then NetPage, also being an ISP, also owns 5% of the shares. So you have 51% owned by the private sector members, and then you have 49% owned by the public sector players.
So would it be correct to say GSC effectively manages the ACE cable in the Gambia?
Yeah, we are the landing party for the entire ACE consortium in the Gambia. So we are managing the cable system in collaboration with the ACE consortium, which is having a membership of about 21 different operators in almost 20 countries or more.
The cable was meant to make Gambia's connection to the internet very effective. Has that been the case?
Yes, in terms of calling it effective and efficient, I would say yes, because let's remember when ACE cable was launched in 2012, the Gambia was almost relying, prior to that, relying on a capacity usage of about 6 STM1s. At the day of the launch that we had, this is just communication capacity they have for the operators to actually carry. The day of the launch, we had about some 66 STM1s. Today, as I speak to you, we have almost 220 something. It's over 200, 300, 400% times increase. And that capacity in simple terms would be like this. It's like if the whole Gambia was using 5 buses traveling from Banjul to Basse. Prior to ACE, that means prior to 2012. When the ACE came in now, we've been able to provide in that layman's language over 220 buses. And this is just the capacity we are currently using that we have activated. But the capacity we have on the cable system itself, it's well over, it could be 3 to 4 times more than the current capacity that is activated.
Why is that the case? Why are we not taking more?
Well, we have some challenges. Those challenges are there.
Like what?
We have the national backbone issues, that's the ECO one. Because it's like, again, I will explain that to the, in a simple man's language. You have the buses, like you have 800 buses, or let's say 8 million buses. But in some of those buses, you have limousine, you have special vehicles. But you need the clear route. You need the road for those buses to ply on. In our case, that road would be the national backbone, that is the ECO one. So accessing that backbone is one key issue.
Why is that a challenge, accessing the ECO one? Why is
ECO one itself as a national backbone, we can say is under the management of Gamtel. It has its own constraints, the constraint issues of cost. It could be high. Operators will be complaining that it's very costly. It's like if I want my traffic to move from the ACE building, from the landing station, from the GSC, or we want the traffic from Banjul to Basse, there is cost to that. But you may be surprised that in some cases, if you look at the quotations, if I want to travel to Paris or Lisbon, chances are the cost of that and the cost of traveling to Basse, the difference may not be that much. And then the issue is because the cost of accessing that national backbone is key. In fact, the regulator and the government came in some time ago based on the studies carried out to actually make sure that that access is facilitated. We considered it, and clear tariffs have been set for the access to move on. I think the second challenge there within is just about the management of the backbone, national backbone.
Okay, liberalization, has it helped or hindered?
The liberalization of the telecommunications sector or the communications sector, whether it has helped the country or not. I would answer that yes and no. The no part is simply because of the history of the way we started it. I'll just spend a minute on that. I think in as much as the authorities as at that time thought of liberalizing the sector based on the forces of change as at that time, they should have prepared ourselves for following or satisfying some of the prerequisites for true liberalization. Number one, if you are liberalizing the sector, you have to really look at that particular players you are having. In our case, it's GAMTEL. GAMTEL should have been properly repositioned, put in a proper footing for that liberalization. The records are showing that that was not done.
But GAMTEL had opportunities like the ECO1 project, the Gateway.
Okay, those ones came well after the liberalization part, because we're talking about...
yeah, but I mean, like, after the coming of these ones, they could have at least regroup and reposition themselves.
At that time already, this is company, the damage is done. Remember, you liberalize the sector without a sector legislation. You actually set up a regulator, that is the PURA Act, without a sector legislation. So the PURA Act came in by 2001, and the sector legislation came in by 2009, almost from 7 to 8 years span. And then after that also, you just license operators without actually having a clear licensing framework. Remember our current licensing regime, how it is. We need to really scrap it.
Why were these things not taken into consideration?
You know,
because we assume it was professionals who handled this. They should know there should be legislation before liberalization.
You know, in those days, we're talking about the period of former regime. You get a simple letter to say, I want that entity to be licensed. And then the letter is written to them, you are hereby licensed. But we know as the best practice is if you are licensing an entity, you should be able to understand what they want to do, the network they want to build, the network rollout plans, the commitments for the first 5 years, second 5 years, third 5 years. You look at the services they want to roll out, you put up conditions for it. Nothing like this was happening. It's like, go and do what you can do because we have given you the authorization to do. Collectively, I think it's a serious oversight, and that is what is haunting us today. GAMTEL is where it is today because it was never given the opportunity for that repositioning to strengthen it. And I think the opportunity is still there, we can do it. But the goal has to be there.
How can GAMTEL?
Let's say one of the missed opportunities, for example, if that money had been there, the gateway revenue for this country for the period of the 10 years or so was almost $443 million US, not dollars. Out of these $443 million US, based on the records, only 18% of that money actually reached GAMTEL.
The rest, where did it go?
The rest of the money, we just have to find out where it's gone to. So really what we are saying is, if that money had been there in GAMTEL coffers, we could have used a part of that money, not all of it in fact. A mere $100 million would have given Gambia an access to almost 3 or 4 different submarine cable systems. We will not be where we are today. And that's a lost opportunity. Now with GAMTEL there as it is, and the gateway is liberalized, there is no value attached to voice now anymore. You and I, if we travel abroad, even in the country, we all call by WhatsApp. You hardly would use a GAMTEL whatever to call. So the voice has no value. In the next few years, it's going to be a value-added service. Nobody would pay for it. So we're saying that the opportunity that is there that they can do to reposition GAMTEL, one is to really look at the market needs at the moment. GAMTEL is a big player because it controls the network, controls the fiber. You can focus their attention on that infrastructure service provision, and possibly they can strategically withdraw from retail service provision and then leave that to the other operators, including GAMCEL. And then you will now become a key infrastructure player. All the other providers, service providers, like the private sector and the public sector, GAMCEL, will now be depending on GAMTEL at a price. That is definitely a good future for GAMTEL.
Okay, we'll come back to that. Let's now look at the recent internet outage.
Sure.
What was responsible for it?
It's a cable cut.
And you are responsible for that cable?
Yeah, GSE is responsible for the cable. But let's remember there are 2 cable cuts that happen. We have the cable cut at the sea, and then we have the terrestrial network failure, or at the terrestrial level. At the terrestrial level, that is at the level of GAMTEL.
Okay.
So when the cable cut happened,
So can we explain
the difference?
Yes, just is the terrestrial one the local link to the sea cable?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have what we have it. There is a cable. ACE cable is a 17,000 plus kilometers cable that runs from France all the way to South Africa, connecting a few countries on the coast of Africa. Gambia is one of them. Senegal is there. The Guineas up to Gabon, down to South Africa. So when it reaches the Gambia, just like all the others, the main cable is there. There is a branching unit that comes to the Gambia. Now, from the main branching point up to the landing station at our offices here, that part of the cable is the BU cable link. That is under our responsibility as GSC. Of course, ACE facilitate, it helps us in the repair and the maintenance. But we have a lot of fishing activities in a part of the cable, which is about 40 kilometers off the coast of the Gambia. This area is very rich in fish resources. At the same time, this is an area which is very shallow. It's just barely 40 meters or so deep. So that's what we are made to understand. A lot of fishing activities there, and the cable is not buried because it's a bit rocky. That's the understanding we have. So the part of the cable which is not buried, and then you have this fishing vessel crossing and plying from northern Senegal to southern Senegal. Our own vessels are using it, and mistakenly they hook up with the cable and then gets it destroyed.
Is the route not mapped?
This needs to be done.
So it means it hasn't been done?
It has to be done by the Gambia Maritime Agency. They need to be told that there is a cable system here. I do understand on the record.
Mr. Jabi, you don't think that should have been done a long time ago?
A long time ago.
Alcatel could have told us this area, the cable is not buried, these are the risks, then we can see what we can do.
In fact, you'll be surprised, I think this is not about Alcatel. Alcatel is not licensed in this country. The authority responsible for such information is the first authority, that's the Public Utilities Regulatory Authority, that is PURA. When the ACE cable system was being built as a project, the specifications were given to all countries and all members. And then they needed clearance from each country to say this is the route where we want to build the cable system.
So
and I believe that
Alcatel supplied the information to Pura?
Orange, that is ACE, supplied the information to Pura. I supplied information to the government as at that time.
Okay.
What's supposed to have happened is a proper coordination among all the stakeholders, including the Gambia Maritime Agency. Because once they get that cable map, it gets properly mapped, and it's sent out international, then any fisherman or any pliers of the sea would understand that we are now crossing over a very critical infrastructure. Okay. The good news is we had a meeting with the GMA, Gambia Maritime Agency, the Navy, as well as the Fisheries Ministry, including the Ministry for ICT. We have agreed that that's going to be done as soon as possible.
What about backup, multiple backup?
You know, multiple backup, it has to have two. We have to have the terrestrial link, and we have to have the seaside link. ACE is the only link that connects the Gambia to the outside world. And
is that not dangerous?
This is more than dangerous. If it goes off, the entire country is blackout. We have, from my own office, we've written letters many times informing and advising that it's important the country considers a second, a third, or a fourth cable. You go to Senegal right now, any cable that passes down there, they want connectivity. They have almost more than 4 cable systems crossing Senegal. You go to some of our neighbors here as well, they're doing the same thing. I think we need to start considering that. But the good news is, with this bad experience we had last week, we have started reaching out to some of the sea cable operators. Glo is one, Google is another one, Facebook is another one, Main one is another one, so quite a number of them. On the terrestrial side, where we had the second cut, in fact, it is this terrestrial cut that created the terrible havoc for us in a few days ago. This terrestrial cut actually happened, so I would say a network failure happened on the part of Senegal on the Sonatel link. It has nothing to do with the Gamtel link. Initially, when we communicated what happened, Senegalese, that is Sonatel, informed us that it could have been a problem between Sileti and one of the neighboring towns, power problem. Then they said, no, it's not a power problem, it is a jumper problem. They say, no, it's not a jumper problem, because we sent, Gamtel sent staff to Sileti to make sure that we can provide the jumpers for that connectivity. They say it's not that. Thirdly, they say, no, it's a tape problem. And then that tape problem, we realized It's at Karam Point here, which is now regularized. We've learned something from it. So what are we doing? We have now reached out, the private sector members, the GSC reached out to the government to advise. And we had a very good meeting even today with the Ministry for ICT to advise that I think it is important we also build terrestrial cable links onto other parts of Senegal where other cable providers in Senegal could be connected to the Gambia. So our dependency on Sonatel alone would be reduced, and then that would increase the efficiency and the reliability of the cable system.
How soon?
We are counting a period of 2 months for that to go through, because the IU project for Gamtel is almost done. We understand within 2 months or so. If we push a little bit harder, it's a bit expensive, there is money to be done. We're looking at a marginal figure of not less than $1 million US. But then once that is done, really, I think that challenge of terrestrial connectivity could be minimized.
So if that happens, it means there will be less internet outage?
There will be less internet outage, because if there is a failure on ACE, we can automatically reroute the traffic on one of the available routes at the terrestrial level. And then the traffic will now travel from here terrestrially to Dakar to get us connected to the capacity we have on the ACE cable from Dakar onward.
Sounds simple. One wonders why it wasn't done in the beginning.
Well, you know, all these things, you have so many key players in it, and natural issues are there. The quota at the sea is mainly a fishing activity. And then we had a meeting with the Minister of Fisheries for them to reconsider their licenses that they issue, the fishing vessels that ply around the area. We have to make sure that we encourage them to use, and they are constantly using the rights they have within the UNCLOS Treaty, that is the United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea, where along the side of the cable, 500 meters this side and 500 meters on both sides of the cable where it is laid within our territorial waters and the EEZ zone, the cable could be protected. So they may have to engage a key main partner, that is Senegal, in the bilateral arrangements they have over fishing matters, so that the vessels of the Gambia that is licensed in the Gambia and those vessels licensed in Senegal would respect that boundary line and would observe that those restrictions are to be observed along that cable route.
Okay, the high cost of the internet, how can we bring it down?
I think we need a few things. We need to review the policies, we need to review the regulations, and the operators also need to come. But as an operator, at our level, I think it's very important that we have a proper management of the national backbone. Because we have the internet you are having, that capacity you are having, the bandwidth, we have it at the GSC in abundance. Today, we have not been able to optimally utilize more than 50% of that capacity. And I would be very happy as the Director General for almost 90% or 100% of that capacity to be utilized by the Gambians. I don't mind. I would love for the Gambians to have that capacity. If you are spending $100 for maybe one whatever, you can spend $3. That's no issue. But I think the challenge, the first challenge is access to that national backbone, the main road that actually distributes that capacity, access to it, its management needs to be reviewed. And we also have to also understand.
Are you reviewing it? Is that ongoing?
This mainly is a policy and regulatory issue. I think PURA would be in a better position to really address this. Of course, I have to be fair to them to say there has been a study where we have actually come out with tariffs for accessing the national backbone, that is the ECO1. But this ECO1 with about 914 or 18 kilometers, fiber ring in different rings within the country, it's under Gamtel's management. You can put rates and you can even reduce them to nothing. You can say people can have, this is the rate, but you have to enable that access. And remember, if I am an operator like QCell or AfriCell or Comium or NetPage or whatever, and I put up my tower down there in Basse, be it at Lunghare, be it in Karton or Koina, and then my tower is there. If I have to access the ECO1 backbone, and I have to abandon the tower over which I have invested, it must be a bit welcoming, in the sense that I have to realize that the money I have spent on my tower, I don't go and spend more on the accessing the backbone. So you have to make sure that you give me incentives for me to use the national backbone, and I do away with my tower. So in effect, what I'm saying is interconnection regime needs to be revisited in this country. Interconnection relationships.
And live from Banjul, this is GRTS News at 2200 hours with me, Winifred Nicole. In the headlines tonight, Frank exchanges to strengthen partnership. His Excellency President Adama Barrow receives delegations of imams representing various communities across the country and members of the Balanta Society. Inner city residents hail the construction of new markets and feeder road networks linking communities across the West Coast and Greater Banjul area. Assessing the state of emergencies and national crisis handling, the Assembly Select Committee on Health and Humanitarian Relief towards disaster hotspots and the COVID-19 Treatment Center. A close view of a designated game changer, GRTS News, takes a close look at the targeted impact of the resilience of organizations for transformative smallholder agricultural project launched by the President last week. In sports, Rafael Nadal moves closer to winning the all-time male Grand Slam singles title and his second Australian Open as he sets up a tie with Italy's Fabio Fognini. While away from home, at least 3 people died after a car bomb exploded in the Somali capital, Mogadishu, near the presidential palace. And the UK Supreme Court gives Nigerian farmers the green light to sue Shell over oil spills. Well, viewers, those are the headlines. A warm welcome to GRTS News. Now, let's begin this bulletin with the President, His Excellency Adama Barrow, who on Saturday separately received in audience high-powered delegations of imams from Bundung and the Balanta community who called on him to express their support and solidarity with him and his government. The engagement provided a platform for frank exchanges on how to enhance partnership between various communities and the government. Well, that report by Mamadou Jallo will come later in the news. Now, the targeted impact of the resilience of organizations for transformative smallholder agriculture project routes launched by President Barrow last week, moving to create access to markets for enhanced food security and nutrition. The $80 million project is designed to increase agricultural productivity and transform the sector with a focus on women and youth involved in agriculture. Now, earlier we spoke to the project manager of Roots, and we started by asking him just how the Roots project will transform Gambian agriculture.
The projected goal of the Roots project, and what will it, or how will it transform Gambian agriculture?
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me. This project, as you have rightly said, is set to transform the macroeconomic landscape of the country. We are aiming high. We're aiming at almost achieving self-sufficiency in rice production in the country, but also making a big dent in the imports of horticultural products in the country. Therefore, as you have indicated, 39 districts are being targeted all across the country, a total of 40,000 households. And if you take the average household size of 8, we are talking about 320,000 people. 80% of the target is women, 25% is youth. And as you said, it's $80 million, multi-donor funded over a period of 6 years.
Interesting. So, I mean, the program sets out a focus, like you mentioned, on women and youth, two disempowered demographics largely involved in farming. How does the Roots scheme intend to engage them?
Yes. If you notice, the two main target commodities are rice and vegetables. And these are domains of women farmers, predominantly. So it is a deliberate policy of targeting areas where women hold sway. But we are also wanting to encourage youth to delve more into the agricultural sector by empowering them.
Now, Mr. Jai, how can the targeted district participate and make the most from this project?
Absolutely. The project has a two-pronged approach. One is to improve productivity. Therefore, not only the yields, but also area cultivated. But we are also going up the value chain.
Okay.
Not just productivity, but also access to markets. So the first component is productivity. The second is access to markets. So we follow the value chain from production all the way to the supermarkets, to the hotels, to the restaurants, and to the households.
Let's now shift attention to national emergencies because the National Assembly Select Committee on Health and Humanitarian Relief continues its tour to various disaster hotspots in the country with visits to the capital city Banjul and the COVID-19 testing center at the Independence Stadium in Bakau. The two-legged exercise seeks to examine measures in place to mitigate disasters in the country and assess challenges confronting the country's response to the global pandemic. Fatamata Cham has more.
The capital city, Banjul, is severely vulnerable to disasters. This is exacerbated by inappropriate and inadequately maintained infrastructures, poor waste management, and people settling on waterways. The 7 interlinked canals constructed across Banjul do not seem to be doing much, as they are mostly blocked by heaps of waste, disrupting the flow of water.
As a matter of fact, I think the machine we need a better machine, and we also need a treatment plan for the sewage system to be able to solve Banjul's problems. Honorable celebrated the fact that Banjul mosquitoes do not cause malaria. In as much as we celebrate that, their mere presence is a nuisance. So I think a treatment plan is definitely necessary if we really want to curb the incidences of malaria, the incidences of other hazards, not only malaria, cholera. One cholera outbreak for Gambia is a disaster.
The government of the Gambia has said it is resolved to addressing the drainage challenges of the city, which suffers frequent flooding events. This visit by the National Assembly Select Committee on Health and Humanitarian Relief is one of many by stakeholders as measures are being devised to make the city less disaster prone.
Yes, we are pushing them to do something, and then councils have a role to play because you can see the lack of regular collection of waste is a challenge. People have transformed these places into a dump site, so that's a real challenge. The councils are also not doing what they're supposed to do in terms of regular waste collection. That also contributes to the blockage because you see the waste ends up in the drains.
Towing the disaster hotspots in the city, it is evident that serious work needs to be done.
Priority for this place is to excavate it and then drag it further so that it can have the capacity to retain the water. That way also the other priority is immediately is to remove this rubbish and expand the canal also. Then the long-term and mid and long-term solution to the problem is stone pitching it on this side, if where possible, covered with slabs.
The National Disaster Management Agency is mandated to manage as well as mitigate the impacts of disasters in the country. Its executive director tells me his office remains resolute to averting all forms of disasters in the country.
Any aspect of disaster, the government is the principal duty bearer. Other stakeholders, other agencies may come and supplement and complement government's effort. But governments should take the center stage, and thank God that the government is recognizing that they are the duty bearer when it comes to disaster management in this country and humanitarian response. COVID-19 is an eye-opener. I think it has posed serious clinical and humanitarian challenges in this country, and government is taking its rightful position in terms of responding to the clinical aspect as well as providing food assistance to the victim. I think that's highly commendable.
From Banjul, the committee proceeded to the Independence Stadium in Bakau to monitor events and hear the challenges confronting the COVID-19 testing center. Here, throngs of people, mostly intending travelers, lined up to get tested.
It's not very conducive for sample collection usually because it is very hot. And especially when people are crowded here, as you can see, there's no social distancing. The place is very overcrowded and there's no chairs. There are no chairs, no tables.
Disasters including the coronavirus pandemic have already upended the lives of millions of people around the world. However, officials say confronting this trend and reversing it takes time. Notwithstanding, developments, they say, must be guided by a disaster prevention culture. For GRTS News, I am Fatoumata Chan.
The First Lady, Fatoumata Barbaro, has inaugurated a multi-million-dollar fish factory project in Tangier. The major initiative undertaken by the Yoruba-Base Group aims to contribute to the development of the Gambia's fisheries sector through increased productivity to supply both the local and international markets. Majan Barrow reports.
The inauguration of this multi-million-dollar fish factory, which was presided over by the First Lady Fatoumata Barbaro, brought together dignitaries from the Gambia and Senegal, including the Senegalese ambassador to the Gambia, Basir Hussein. Addressing some of the challenges faced by the country's fisheries sector, the First Lady, Madam Fatoumata Barbaro, described the fish factory as means of complementing government's efforts in empowering local women and youths, promote food and nutrition security, as well as increase access to international markets and trade.
There is an increased national concern for these realities and challenges women and youth face, especially in fisheries and agriculture sector. Although government of the Gambia continue to work with various partners to address some of these challenges, you will all agree with me that the private sector and foreign investors are also center agents of change and development within these sectors. Projects like this fish factory would therefore naturally empower women and youth by creating employment opportunities and market access that would help them earn higher income and create a safety net for poverty alleviation.
The Senegalese ambassador to the Gambia, Basir Hussein, noted that Tangier is the fishing capital of the Gambia. He thanked the CEO of Yoruba's group for bringing such a development to the doorstep of the community of Tangier.
Thanks and gratitude to the government and people of the Republic of the Gambia for warm hospitality and peaceful space extended to the Senegalese community in your beautiful and historical country of the Gambia. The peaceful environment, the rule of law we are witnessing in the country, democratic and good governance, the clean functioning of institutions.
The Deputy Director of Fisheries, Mamadou Sidibe, outlined the importance of the project, which seeks to develop small-scale businesses to large-scale fishery production.
Vessel monitoring equipment and software has been acquired through the sectoral support program funds under the EU-Gambia Sustainable Fisheries Partnership Program at the cost of €117,000. Equipment has already been installed at the newly established Fisheries Monitoring Center. The installation of beacons on board fishing vessels is ongoing.
The CEO of Yoruba's group, Malik Bass, hailed the government of the Gambia and people of Tangier village for such an important project. According to Mr. Bass, the multi-million-dollar fish project will go a long way in empowering Gambians, adding that 70% of the fish produced will be sold in the country.
I started to do business from 2005. And this fishing we started to do it last year, to build it. It's private investment. It's me invest it. So I just do it and we do it. And for me, the most people I work in it is the 65% customer I have that women. So women and kids. So it's more with them I working. So for me, and they asking me also, all my customers asking me to see First Lady opening this fish factory because it's for them. This fish factory, we do it. So many of them have fish and don't have where to leave it, to bring it to Serekunda or Basel to go to sell it. So mostly they have problem where to keep their fish.
Special awards of appreciation were handed to individuals, including the First Lady and the Senegalese ambassador to the Gambia. The Yorubas group, which was established in 2005, operates in the Gambia and Senegal, and officials say the project is also expected to start operations in Guinea-Bissau soon. Majan Baro for GRTS News.
Dream finally comes true for inner city residents in Latrikunda Sabji and Sukuta Nema as they witness new construction works building feeder roads and a new market and school in the area, coming years after living with poor road networks that have the area flood prone. Urban residents hailed the project as a well-timed initiative that will ease their daily labors in plying the expansive inner city precinct. On Sunday, GRTS's Fatilika Moloshi journeyed down there to witness firsthand what the ongoing roads project mean for the people.
This road stretches from Latrikunda Sabiji all the way to Sukuta Nema. It has been a long journey for residents here who have for many years yearned for a motorable road that will ease their daily travels and drudgery. Every day, residents here walk across this long and difficult terrain during rain, hail, and floods to access markets and other services, braving one of the worst roads in the West Coast. It used to be very difficult for those of us working. The road was not motorable during the rainy season, and the women going to the markets suffered with their goods because they walked long distances. This ongoing construction at the heart of a massive wetland is a targeted game changer, and besides a good road network, residents say they are also looking forward to a good drainage system that will solve their biggest nightmare, flash floods aggravated by poor road networks. We are very happy, but we need a drainage system so that once it rains, the water can pass smoothly. The infrastructure benefits 4 different communities from Nema Wasulung, Nema Jola Kunda, Latrikunda Sabiji, and Sukuta Nema. The women living in this community seem to be the happiest. We are very happy now because you can easily board a vehicle and go run your daily needs without much hassle. Infrastructural programs here include a major market in Latrikunda and a school, but a road network linking communities is a great headway, which means students will not have to trek long distances anymore with vehicles plying the road when completed.
It is so beautiful and I'm happy about it.
As we head to the other parts of this site ongoing construction, a test drive eventually became necessary.
So we're on this same road, and as you can see, this particular place links to the other side of Sukuta, which is still under construction. And in fact, this one is still under construction too. What we want to do is have a test run and see whether this road is really smooth as it is. And from the feeling, I can tell that it is really smooth. It's still under construction. We can see that the place is still motorable.
When we visited this site on Sunday, walkers were taking a rest, but the feeling of change is glaring, with kids skating on the smooth pathways in contentment and ease. For the youth population here in Nema Wasulung looking for livelihood opportunities, these programs signpost greater optimism in the future.
We are happy, but there is more. We need them to give the youth of the community an opportunity to participate in the construction process, because this is where some folks get a living.
However, who does not feel proud of a community with a tarred road? Residents in this community are clearly elated and impatient to see its completion to put their fears of the promise unfulfilled by other administrations to rest. Reporting for GRTS News, I am Fatu Eliko Moloshi.
Now, earlier we interviewed Mr. Bakari Mane, Senior Engineer at the National Roads Authority, who gave us an update on the state of ongoing roads under construction across the country. Let's take a listen for more on that.
Thank you.
Now, give us an update on the state of the ongoing roads under construction across the country.
Okay, thank you. Once again, at National Roads Authority, we actually across the country, we know, like you said, we know only present in the Combo area here. We all the way stretch to Basse Fatoto, the other side, the northern side, to we are presently working. Currently, the roads that are under the construction are our famous Chinese project, that is Basse Fatoto, which is a 51 kilometer stretch, is under construction, and with the 4 bridges. It has 4 bridges as well, 2 big bridges and these 2 small bridges. That one is under construction, and we have also at the northern part too, we have the Lamenkoto extension. We have, after the Lamenkoto Passamhouse Road, we also have an extension that we call the Lamenkoto extension. That is Kalin. You can remember sometime end of last year, His Excellency Mr. Barrow inaugurated one of our road there, which is a Kalin, Bustown Road. This one under construction is Yorobawol to Basse. So that one is also under construction. Then we come to Hakalan, that is the Nyomi Hakalan. It's also under construction, works as Chikot, plus the Indian one. Works have started. Those are the ones that are up country, and here in the in Combo here we also have few routes. These ones, these are 2019 to 2020 road maintenance program. We call it at National Roads Authority. This is our maintenance program, but due to COVID, most of them could not be finished. One is the Bakau internal roads. We have Bakau internal roads, and we have Brusubi Phase 2, and we also have the Julbro is yet to be commenced. That's the Julbro from where you call Iceman Johnson to Julbro.
It's necessary.
It's necessary coming to GRTS.
Yes, because I experienced that. I have to in fact dodge that place now because it's horrible the way it is.
What happened because, like I said, because of the COVID, last year when COVID came, most of our roads and the works we stopped completely because of the COVID. So that really affected the works, but now they are on high gear. These are works that are currently going on the National Roads Authority program.
Well, over now to our earlier mentioned story where the President, His Excellency Adama Barrow, who on Saturday separately received in audience high-powered delegations of imams from Bundung and Balanta community, who called on him to express their support and solidarity with him and his government. The engagement provided a platform for frank exchanges on how to enhance partnership between various communities and the government. Omodu Jallo has more.
The Imam Association of Bundung is an umbrella organization that brings together religious leaders from the community of Bundung. They were at the State House to manifest support to the President and seek support for their association and its membership. Speaking at the meeting, the Secretary General of the association, Colin Bakke, said it was formed 2 decades ago to promote the welfare of members and support worthy causes. He commended President Barrow for entrenching peace and stability in the country, reassuring that as religious leaders, they are always praying for him.
This association, we meet at the Central Mosque of Bundung. We do pray for him, and we pray for the government. Maybe you are not aware, but this is happening. Because when there is peace, you are the one who gave us the air of freedom in this country, the air of justice in this country. We have realized all that is through your government and your leadership. We are happy and we are grateful for breathing that air.
Imam Mahdi Sane thanked the President for giving them the platform to discuss issues of concern to the Imams, lamenting that as religious leaders, they struggle to make ends meet and would therefore want government to support them with financial incentives. The Imam Ratib of Bundung, Mohammed Jaite, said Imams do not oppose a sitting government and as such will use their influence in society to mobilize support for the President and his development agenda. He said Imams play a key role in society, providing spiritual and religious guidance to the community, but lamented that their services are not rewarded. Several other Imams called for unity and support for the President, adding that God gives leadership positions to any of his servants, and all Muslims must accept such divine decisions. The Presidential Advisor on Religious Matters, Alhaji Dembo Bojang, disclosed that President Barrow has fulfilled all the promises made to Gambians. He therefore urged the Imams to pray for the Gambian leader, as he has shown restraint and patience. He commended the religious tolerance in the country and enjoined Imams to maintain the status quo to prevent conflicts of any religious nature.
Dino fitino mambetea, dino fitino ka banko tinyal, dino fitino ka badul walingil. Ning atra wadu watar ka Alquran karanyin. Fitin rekla nyim banko kan dal bo kan nafana.
The Minister of Tourism and Culture, Hamad N. Keba, expressed belief that traditional Islamic schools should be supported by government as they form an integral part of the education system in the Gambia. He also enjoined Imams to use their sermons to preach peace and hold government accountable if the need arises. Meanwhile, the Minister of Regional Government and Lands, who is also responsible for religious affairs, urged Imams to work together to oppose any form of religious intolerance or extremism in the country, adding that government is working with its partners to support religion and religious leaders. He reassured that government is aware of their plight and will review their situation to explore possibilities of supporting them. The President, His Excellency Adama Barrow, expressed delight at receiving what he described as a distinguished delegation of Imams to discuss issues of national importance. He described the association as very important, urging others to use it as a template to organize Imams to speak with one voice. The President said his government respects religious leaders, recalling how he took his first decision as President to free 3 Imams who had been held by his predecessor. He added that his government has taken the unprecedented step of providing funds to both the Islamic and Christian councils.
Dino la kafo membe Gambia kono nyanta subvention dile la pour ya dino nyin tamandi yela office ni administrate no inin dina mol si kacano banko kan ni ko do boyde okeno ngaw subvention nga create subvention ni folo kono ye million tan dila san wosan bari nga jube na budget kono nga jube million tan siata na ratala nga ke million luluti nyina ye ko do ni access la nyina alam ila minister jamme.
Speaking about the welfare of Imams, President Barrow pledged to lead an advocacy campaign to support Imams with funds to enable them augment their livelihoods, describing the job as purely voluntary. The President also opined that the Muslim community should support Imams by donating funds, arguing that society should be organized enough to help religious leaders. On a final note, President Barrow urged Imams to use their pulpits to preach peace and stability, instead of using it as political platforms to instigate people against the government. The Imams left after receiving strong guarantees of support from the President and his cabinet members. Then came members of the Balanta Society, who also were at State House to express support to President Barrow. The President of the Society, Edward Preda, said President Barrow has shown real commitment to work with all Gambians, as expressed in his statements during the launching of the National People's Party. He therefore assured him of the Balanta support, appealing for logistics to embark on a sensitization tour across the country to unify the Balanta community under President Barrow. The youth representative of the community, Musa Damfa, appealed for support for the Balanta youth to enable them access scholarships and jobs.
Most of them, after high schools, they couldn't continue due to lack of support and funding. It caused them to wander and walk away and doing other things that we or the parents don't wish them to be.
President Barrow welcomed the community to the State House, adding that it conforms with his government's policy of building bridges with all groups in the Gambia. He promised to support the Balanta community, especially in their stated objectives of sensitizing their members on the upcoming voter registration exercise. The President also advised the community members to integrate in their societies and take advantage of the opportunities provided by his government. Mamadou Diallo, GRTS News.
Officials of the Gambia Red Cross Society, led by the Secretary General on Friday, officially received 2 horticultural gardens in the West Coast region from the contractor after partial completion of the contract agreement. The initiative is aimed at boosting women's capacity in horticultural gardening. Patidiba attended the ceremony and files in this report.
The Gambia Red Cross Society, through the Japanese Red Cross and International Federation of Red Cross, have provided borehole and other facilities meant for women gardeners of Kanilai and Kondoku in West Coast region. The gesture is aimed at boosting horticultural production in beneficiary communities. The contractor, Suigam, formally handed over the work to the Gambia Red Cross Society, where the women expressed delight over the project, adding that it will assist in complementing their efforts to boost productivity. The Director of Programs at the GRCS, Abdullah Fay, noted that the provision of adequate water supply has been a challenge for women gardeners, hence the introduction of this project.
This garden was full of grasses, simply because they were not cultivating it, due to the fact that the system that is available here to pump water is electricity from NAWEC. And for them to sustain that, they have to buy cash power of almost 10,000, in every month or in every 2 months. And this is not sustainable. What they did here was to provide 10 panels of solar, and then 4 tanks, each 5,000 liters, which is 20,000 liters for water, and then the pumping machine.
Horticulture is rapidly emerging as one of the key growth areas of the Gambian economy. However, horticultural farmers suffer a high rate of loss due to factors like inadequate water supply and storage facilities. The women gardeners in Kanilai said the introduction of the water service will help greatly in their horticultural production, but further appealed for more assistance. We are appealing for an expansion of the garden and also provision of a storage facility so we can store our products after harvesting. Storage is one of the challenges we are confronted with. In the community of Kandonku, the women group echoed similar sentiments. They expressed satisfaction over the work done by the contractor and his team. The Secretary General of the Red Cross Society also assured local communities of his organization's continued support, especially in the empowerment of women and youths.
We should endeavor to render support to women gardeners. I encourage the youth to assist their mothers and sisters working in the garden, because whatever is harvested comes back to the family.
According to officials of the Gambia Red Cross Society, the humanitarian organization will endeavor to work with women in a bid to improve lives and livelihoods of local communities. Fatudeba for GRTS News.
The National Social Protection Secretariat recently concluded a consultative meeting with local government authorities in the Central River region to detect gaps and collate findings on the data collected by the Gambia Bureau of Statistics to build the National Social Protection Program. Our regional correspondent Modula Minsane has more on that.
This undertaking by officials of the National Social Protection Secretariat is meant to consult communities on the data collection done by GBOS, particularly on the Social Safety Net project. Here in the Central River region, the Secretariat gathered alcaldes, chiefs, village development committees, and councillors to discuss gaps and areas left out since the commencement of the project.
Look at the data collection that has been done by GBOS so that we can have total coverage as far as the region is concerned, and also to make sure that the data is completed in terms of the information that we are seeking. So this is an initiative that is launched to hear complaints and address them.
This follow-up process avails the opportunity for community heads to put forward challenges they face in social protection.
And also to come up with, to design a manual that will also be the grievance redress mechanism for the national level that will be responsible for all social programs, and will be coordinated by the National Social Protection Secretariat as well.
The interface, which lasted for 2 days, was also an opportunity to sensitize local authorities on their roles and responsibilities in social protection.
Since they work directly with the communities, if we give them any information, we expect, even imams are here, the information that will be given to them, we expect them to disseminate it, like even in their khutbahs, they can talk to people, sensitize them that if there are any issues they encounter during the data collection activity with the GBOS, they can always come forward to express their grievances, and it will be listened to be processed, and a redress mechanism, a redress will be done.
At the end of the community forum, officials from the Social Protection Secretariat are expected to report their findings and make recommendations to GBOS for a second phase of social registration. Modulamin Sane, reporting for GRTS News from the Central River region.
Well, time now for a look at sports. And the Australian Open, where Rafael Nadal is inching closer to a history-making win, and his Aussie Open. The victory over Italy's Fabio Fognini is the semi-finals of the Australian Open on Monday, could seal the deal for the Spaniard, who is moving to win his second Australian Open, whilst on course to breaking the all-time male record he shares with Roger Federer for the most Grand Slam singles title. Nadal, who came into the tournament complaining about a back muscle injury, won his third opponent, British Cam Norrie, in 3 straight sets to reach the 4th round with ease. A win in Monday's encounter with 16th seed Fabio Fognini of Italy in the round of 16 could see Nadal edging past Federer to win a major title and become the first man to win each major twice in the tennis Open era. Well, with that, we come to the end of this edition of the newscast. But before we take leave of you, a look once again at our headline-making stories. Inner city residents have hailed the construction of new markets and feeder networks linking communities across the West Coast and Greater Banjul area. Assessing the state of national emergencies and crisis handling, the National Assembly Select Committee on Health and Humanitarian Relief is touring disaster hotspots and the COVID-19 treatment center. And a close view of a designated game changer, GRTS News, took a close look at the targeted impact of the resilience of organizations for transformative smallholder agriculture project launched by the President last week. In sports, Rafael Nadal is edging closer to winning the all-time male Grand Slam singles title and his second Australian Open as he sets up a tie with Italy's Fabio Fognini. Well, away from home, at least 3 people have died after a car bomb exploded in the Somali capital Mogadishu near the presidential palace. And the UK Supreme Court has given Nigerian farmers in the Delta region the green light to sue Shell over oil spills. Well, viewers, that was all in this edition of the News at 10 from me, Winifred Nicole, and the entire news team. Thanks for watching and do have a pleasant night.